All right, get ready, because today we're taking a deep dive into the world of Sherlock Holmes.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah, you guys sent in a huge stack of his original stories.
I can't wait.
And honestly, I'm already feeling like I'm right there on a foggy London street,
Yeah,
ready to solve a mystery.
I love it.
There's just something about those Victorian vibes, the intricate plots,
It's so
the
cool.
brilliant deductions. It's all just so captivating.
And what's fascinating is you've chosen a really diverse mix of cases here,
Oh, yeah.
which gives us a chance to explore not just Holmes's methods, but also like the social anxieties of the time,
Right.
the undercurrents of fear, and even the humor
Yeah.
that Conan Doyle kind of wove into these stories.
It's funny you mentioned the humor,
Yeah.
because I think that's something that people often overlook about Sherlock Holmes. They
Mm.
kind of focus on the serious deductions and the crime solving,
Yeah.
but there's a wit there, a
Yeah.
playfulness that I think gets lost sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Conan Doyle had a knack for injecting humor into even like the most serious situations,
Yes.
often through Holmes's dry observations or even just Watson's bewildered reaction.
Right? Like in A Scandal in Bohemia, when Holmes disguises himself as a drunken stable groom
Yes.
just to gain access to Irene Adler's house.
Oh, such a good
You
one.
could just picture him like stumbling around,
Yes.
feigning that intoxication.
Uh-huh.
But all the while, his mind is working, plotting his next move.
It's a brilliant example of his willingness to go to any lengths to solve a case, even if it means making himself look ridiculous.
Totally.
And speaking of Irene Adler,
Yeah.
I think her character is worth exploring a little bit further here.
For sure.
She's often cited as the only woman to ever outsmart Holmes.
Yeah.
But I think there's more to it than that.
Oh, I'm with you there.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
So what makes Irene so different from all of Holmes's other adversaries?
Yeah, good question.
Well, for one thing, she's not a criminal mastermind. She's not driven by greed or like a thirst for power.
Right.
Her motivations are much more personal.
Yeah.
They're tied to her own survival and her own independence.
Right. She's protecting herself,
Yes.
her reputation,
Yes.
from a king,
A king.
no less.
No less.
That takes guts and intelligence.
Exactly. And I think her success really lies in her understanding of human nature,
Oh, interesting.
particularly male ego.
Okay.
She anticipates Holmes's actions, plays on his assumptions,
Wow.
and ultimately outsmarts him by appealing to his sense of chivalry.
That's such a great point. She uses his own strengths against him.
Yeah,
Classic case of know thy enemy.
exactly.
Makes you wonder,
Mm.
does Holmes underestimate her because she's a woman? Or is it simply that she's just that good?
That's a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
And it kind of speaks to the larger themes of gender and power dynamics
Huh.
that are subtly woven into these stories.
Yeah.
Remember, this is Victorian England, a society where women were often relegated to the domestic sphere.
Yes.
Yet here we have Irene Adler, a woman who operates on her own terms,
Total.
who challenges the established order, and who ultimately triumphs.
Yeah.
It's a powerful message, even for today.
Absolutely. It reminds us that intelligence and cunning have no gender,
Yeah.
and that sometimes the most underestimated opponent can be the most dangerous.
Speaking of dangerous opponents, let's move on to The Red-Headed League,
Ooh.
a story that at first glance seems utterly ridiculous. I mean, a league that pays men with red hair to copy the encyclopedia.
Yeah.
It sounds like something out of like a Monty Python sketch.
It does, doesn't it?
It really does.
And yet there's a darkness
Yeah.
lurking beneath that absurdity.
There is.
It reminds me of those modern-day scams where criminals prey on people's desires, their vulnerabilities.
That's a brilliant connection.
Yeah.
Think about it. The red hair is a lure,
Right.
targeting a specific group of people who might be more susceptible to like a seemingly easy way to make money
Yeah.
and the seemingly pointless task of copying the encyclopedia.
Yeah.
A brilliant distraction,
Oh, okay.
keeping Jabez Wilson occupied while the real crime is taking place right under his nose.
It's like a magician's trick.
Yeah.
Diverting your attention while they're pulling off the real illusion.
Exactly.
And just like in those scams, it plays on our own assumptions.
Yeah.
We see a red-headed league, we assume it's harmless,
Right.
even comical.
Yeah.
But Holmes, with his skeptical mind, sees through the facade,
Yes.
recognizes the danger.
He doesn't dismiss anything as too strange or too trivial.
Hmm.
He knows that even the most outlandish scenario can conceal a criminal motive.
Right.
And that's a lesson we can all apply to our own lives, right?
Totally.
Don't be afraid to question the seemingly obvious.
Yeah.
To look for those inconsistencies that might reveal something more sinister at play.
It's like that saying, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes those warning signs are hidden in plain sight.
Oh, for sure.
Just like those red flags we were talking about earlier.
Right.
Speaking of red flags, let's move on to a case that's full of them.
The Boscombe Valley Mystery.
Okay.
Ooh, good one.
This one's a classic whodunit, right?
It is.
The father and son argument, the suspicious circumstances,
Yeah.
this seemingly obvious culprit.
Mm-hmm.
It's all there.
It is. And on the surface, it seems like an open and shut case.
Right.
Young McCarthy is clearly the prime suspect.
Yeah.
He had a motive. He was at the scene of the crime.
Mm-hmm.
And there's even a witness who claims to have seen him fleeing the woods after the murder.
But we know Holmes doesn't just accept the obvious narrative. He digs deeper, right? He looks for those inconsistencies, those details that others might overlook.
He does. And what's interesting here is how he uses the evidence not just to identify the killer,
Right.
but to understand the psychology of the crime.
He pays attention to the footprints, the direction of the fatal blow,
Okay.
the position of the body. All of these details tell a story. A story that contradicts the initial assumptions.
So it's not just about finding the culprit.
No.
It's about understanding why the crime happened in the first place.
Exactly. And in this case, the truth is far more complex than it initially appears.
Okay.
It involves a hidden past, a desperate attempt to protect a secret, and a tragic misunderstanding that leads to a fatal confrontation.
It sounds like there's a lot more to unpack here.
Duh.
Let's delve into those hidden secrets.
Let's do it.
And see how Holmes unravels the truth behind the Boscombe Valley Mystery.
I can't wait.
Okay, the Boscombe Valley Mystery. We've got this father and son who have this bitter argument.
Yeah.
The father turns up dead,
Right.
and all signs are pointing to the son.
Right.
It feels like a classic setup, but knowing Holmes,
Yeah.
there's always more to the story.
Right, you are. And remember how young McCarthy claimed he saw someone lurking in the woods
Right.
near the crime scene?
Yeah.
That detail, seemingly insignificant to the police, becomes crucial for Holmes.
So Holmes uses that detail as like a starting point.
Exactly. Through meticulous examination of the area, he confirms the presence of this mystery person.
Okay.
And get this, identifies him as John Turner,
John Turner.
the wealthy landowner who just happens to be the McCarthy's neighbor.
Hold on. Are you suggesting Mr. Turner,
Yeah.
seemingly respectable and all,
I know.
is the murderer?
It seems so.
What would his motive even be?
Well, that's where it gets fascinating. Holmes, through sharp observation and some very clever questioning, unearths a hidden past.
Okay.
Years ago, John Turner was involved with a group of bushrangers.
Bushrangers.
Yeah, think Australian outlaws.
Oh, wow.
And was forced to flee the country, assuming a new identity in England.
So a shady past.
Yeah.
But how does that tie into the murder of Charles McCarthy?
Well, McCarthy was also in Australia during that same period and knew Turner's secret.
Oh, so he knew about the bushrangers.
Exactly. Fearing exposure, Turner confronts McCarthy, the argument escalates, and tragedy strikes.
A crime of passion, then. Driven by fear and the need to protect a carefully constructed life.
Precisely. It's a reminder that the past can have a powerful grip.
Yeah.
And some people will go to extraordinary lengths to keep their secrets buried.
Right.
It makes you wonder what secrets are lurking beneath the surface of those we think we know.
Ooh, that sends chills down my spine. This deep dive is really making me question everything. But let's move on to something a bit lighter, shall we?
Please.
How about that case with the stolen gemstone and the Christmas goose?
Ah, The Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle. A delightful blend of wit, deduction, and a touch of holiday spirit.
Yeah.
It's amazing how a stolen gem found inside a goose can lead Holmes on such a captivating chase through the heart of London.
It does feel like a playful puzzle almost.
Yeah.
But what I find most intriguing is how Holmes uses his deduction not to catch the thief directly,
Right.
but to understand the chain of events, tracing the movements of that carbuncle like a breadcrumb trail.
Exactly. He meticulously pieces together the journey of that gem from the hotel room to the goose's crop,
Okay.
observing market vendors, analyzing a broken hat found at the scene, even testing the intelligence of a goose.
Wait, he tested the intelligence of a goose?
He did.
How on earth did he do that?
Well, remember his theory
Okay.
that the thief, in a moment of panic, hid the gem inside a goose at the market.
Right.
To test it, Holmes buys all the geese from that vendor.
All of them.
All of them, presents them with food, and watches closely.
Clever, and what did he observe?
One goose refused to eat.
Oh.
Holmes, deducing that the carbuncle must be lodged in its crop,
Hmm.
gently helps the bird dislodge the gem, effectively solving the mystery without ever confronting the thief.
That's brilliant. It's like a game of intellectual hide and seek. Holmes, with his wit and sharp observation, outmaneuvers the criminal and recovers the treasure.
It highlights that sometimes the most elegant solutions aren't about brute force or confrontation. It's about understanding human behavior, using knowledge to guide the investigation towards a satisfying resolution.
Right.
Kind of like a mental chess game, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Now, earlier we touched upon a case of identity.
Yeah.
Where you hinted at Holmes uncovering something unexpected about Miss Mary Sutherland's missing fiancé, Hosmer Angel.
Yes.
What was it that Holmes saw through?
This story truly showcases Holmes's ability to detect deception,
Okay.
even when it's cloaked in seemingly innocent intentions.
Right.
Remember Miss Sutherland's description of her fiancé's odd behavior? The secrecy, the sudden disappearance on their wedding day?
And those typewritten letters.
Yes.
So suspicious. Yet there was something so endearing about Miss Sutherland's unwavering faith in her Hosmer.
That's precisely what makes the case so compelling. Holmes scrutinizing those letters and keenly observing Miss Sutherland's stepfather, Mr. Windibank, reveals a truth as audacious as it is cruel.
All right. I can't take the suspense any longer.
Yeah.
What was the truth behind Hosmer Angel?
Hosmer Angel never existed.
What?
He was a complete fabrication, a persona crafted by Mr. Windibank
Oh my.
to prevent Miss Sutherland from marrying and losing her inheritance.
Wow.
He used the typewriter to create those letters, mimicking different styles, even disguised himself as Angel on their outings,
Wow.
exploiting Miss Sutherland's poor eyesight to maintain the illusion.
Her own stepfather concocted this elaborate scheme.
He did.
That's heartbreaking.
It exposes a darker side of Victorian society.
Yeah.
Women, especially those with independent means, were often seen as vulnerable,
Right.
in need of protection, even if that meant sacrificing their freedom.
And poor Miss Sutherland,
I know.
so devoted to a phantom,
Right.
was completely oblivious to the manipulation happening right under her nose.
It reminds us that even those we trust can have hidden motives,
Yeah.
and appearances can be deceiving. Yet it's also a testament to Holmes's ability to pierce through deceit and uncover the truth no matter how painful.
Speaking of painful truths, The Adventure of the Copper Beeches also deals with a young woman, Violet Hunter,
Right.
thrust into a situation with a family that's, well,
Yeah.
a bit off, to say the least.
Ah, yes. That case is a masterclass in creating a chilling atmosphere.
It is.
The Rucastle family, with their forced cheerfulness and strange requests,
Yeah.
they just reek of hidden secrets and sinister intentions.
Totally.
It's like something out of a Gothic novel.
Totally. It's that eerie feeling that something isn't right,
Yeah.
but you can't quite put your finger on it.
Right.
The locked room, the barred window, the glimpses of a shadowy figure. It's like walking into a nightmare.
Holmes, the keen observer, picks up on subtle clues.
Okay.
The dog only unleashed at night, the peculiar placement of furniture,
Okay.
Violet's forced isolation.
Yeah.
These observations help him unravel a truth far more disturbing than anyone could have imagined.
So what's the real story behind the Copper Beeches? What's lurking beneath that unsettling facade?
Turns out Violet was hired to impersonate the Rucastle's own daughter, Alice,
What?
who was being held captive in that locked room.
Wow.
The family, aiming to inherit Alice's fortune, concocted this scheme to convince her fiancé she'd moved on,
Oh my God.
happily living a new life.
Whoa, that's twisted. It's incredible how Holmes pieced together such a complex plot from what seemed like ordinary details.
This case truly showcases his ability to not just observe,
Right.
but analyze, synthesize, connect those dots,
Yeah.
revealing the dark secrets hiding beneath seemingly normal lives.
It makes you wonder how many Copper Beeches are out there masked by seemingly ordinary facades.
Right.
It's a reminder that the world is full of hidden truths.
Yeah.
And sometimes the most unsettling ones are closer than we think. Okay, let's dive back into The Adventure of the Red-Headed League. I'm still thinking about the Copper Beeches, but now we've got this pawnbroker, Jabez Wilson, with that crazy red hair, getting paid a ton of money just to copy the encyclopedia. It sounds hilarious, but knowing Holmes, there's got to be something more to it, right?
Yeah, it's one of those cases that, like, makes you laugh at first, right? But then as Holmes starts to dig deeper, it's like all that silliness just melts away and you see this really clever scheme underneath.
Yeah. Like, who would go through all the trouble of making up this whole fake league, just to
Yeah.
get a pawnbroker out of his shop for a couple of hours a day? It's nuts.
That's what's so great about it. I mean, the plan is so bold and so out there that it almost works as a distraction on its own. While poor Mr. Wilson's stuck there copying all this stuff about old battles and weird science facts, his assistant, Vincent Spaulding, is busy digging a tunnel right from the pawn shop cellar into the bank next door.
Whoa, that's some serious dedication. But how did Holmes even figure out that something shady was going on? Was it just the whole red-headed league thing being so outlandish?
Well, the red hair was definitely the hook. I mean, it's such a unique trait that it was perfect for luring someone like Mr. Wilson in. But Holmes started noticing all these little things about Spaulding, like inconsistencies in how he acted. Remember how he was okay with working for way less money than usual? And how he was always snooping around the cellar? And all those times he'd disappear for no reason during the day.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So all those things that most people would just brush off as a little weird were actually huge red flags for Holmes. They were pointing to something much bigger going on behind the scenes.
Exactly. Holmes is always a few steps ahead. He sees the League as just a small part of a much larger plan. So he watches, he gathers his evidence, and he waits for the perfect moment to pounce. And then bam, he stops the bank robbery and catches all the bad guys.
Man, it's amazing how he can see all those patterns and connections when everyone else just sees a bunch of random stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, most folks would have just taken the easy money and not even thought twice about it.
I know. It really shows you how differently he sees the world. He notices what everyone else misses, and then he connects all those little, seemingly unimportant details to reach a logical conclusion. It's not just intuition. It takes real discipline, tons of knowledge, and this unwavering commitment to finding the truth.
It's like that saying, the devil is in the details, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes the craziest, most out there situations are actually hiding the most clever schemes.
Yeah.
And sometimes paying attention to all those little tiny things that everyone else ignores can be the key to unlocking a whole mystery.
You got it. And speaking of hidden motives, remember The Adventure of the Barrel Coronet.
Yeah.
It's all about trust and betrayal and what happens when a family's reputation is on the line. There's this missing jewel, and the banker's son, Arthur Holder, and let's just say he doesn't exactly seem like the most trustworthy guy.
I remember thinking, oh, that guy is definitely the one who did it. He had gambling debts and was acting super suspicious. It felt so obvious.
Right. You've got the seemingly obvious suspect, all this evidence pointing to him, and a father who's completely torn between his love for his son and the fact that it looks like his son's a thief. It's got all the ingredients for a classic mystery.
But as always, Holmes doesn't just stop at the surface, right? He digs deeper and looks for any little cracks in the story, any inconsistencies that might suggest a whole different scenario.
Exactly. For instance, he notices that the coronet wasn't just stolen, it was actually broken with some of the jewels missing. And that tells him that the thief wasn't just after the whole thing, but was specifically targeting those gems. He also finds a bunch of seemingly random clues, like a broken bell pull, a dumbbell that's gone missing, and some marks on the windowsill. But to Holmes, these aren't random at all. They're pieces of a puzzle just waiting to be put together.
And all those clues lead him to
The shocking truth. The real culprit wasn't Arthur at all. It was his cousin, Mary Holder. Turns out she was secretly in love with the actual thief, Sir George Burnwell. She helped him get into the house and even broke off those jewels herself.
That's crazy. So it was all about love and greed that made her betray her family.
You got it. Mary was so blinded by her love for this guy that she risked everything, even her family's honor, just to help him. It really shows you how powerful desire can be, even when it pushes people to make terrible choices.
It's a good reminder that even the people we're closest to can keep secrets, and sometimes they do things we'd never expect. It proves that you can't always judge a book by its cover, and it shows how Holmes's sharp mind and incredible logic can untangle even the most complicated lies.
So true. And speaking of lies and deception, how about The Man with the Twisted Lip? That one really shows you how far people will go for the people they love, and it touches on how society viewed poverty and addiction back then.
Oh man, that case really got to me. Imagine this respectable guy living this double life, pretending to be a beggar, just so he can support his family without everyone judging him. It's so sad, but also so clever.
Neville St. Clair was amazing, the way he transformed himself, used makeup to make his face look all messed up like he was disfigured. He was so good at it that he could make people feel sorry for him and give him money, all while keeping up this image of being a successful gentleman in his other life.
It's wild how he managed to live in both of those worlds. It shows you just how different things can be from how they appear, especially in Victorian London, where everyone was obsessed with social status and looking respectable.
And Holmes, with his deep understanding of people, sees right through it all. He sees how desperate St. Clair is and why he feels like he has to do what he's doing. And instead of judging him, he helps him navigate the legal system and protects his family from scandal.
It just goes to show that everyone has their own story. Everyone's going through something. We shouldn't be so quick to judge people just based on what we see on the outside.
You're absolutely right. There's always more to the story than meets the eye. This deep dive into the world of Sherlock Holmes has been amazing. We've met royalty, murderers, master criminals, and regular people who found themselves caught up in extraordinary situations.
It feels like we've stepped back in time, like
Yeah.
we've gotten a glimpse of what it was like to live in Victorian London. Each case has been like a unique puzzle, and they've all shown us just how incredible Holmes is. His observation skills, his logic, and his dedication to truth are just unmatched.
What I love is how these stories don't just give us mysteries and amazing deductions, they give us a peek into how society worked back then. You see those rigid class structures, all the anxieties people were feeling, and this fascination with the darker side of human nature.
Maybe that's why Sherlock Holmes is still so popular today. He's not just a genius detective, he's like a reflection of his time. He reminds us that behind all the fancy appearances and the idea of order, there are secrets, desires, and all these different things that drive us.
And even though we're bombarded with information these days, there's still a place for mystery. There's still that thrill of the chase and that satisfaction that comes with solving a puzzle.
That's so true. We can all learn a lot from Holmes. To be more observant, to think critically, and to never lose our curiosity. A huge thank you to everyone for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Sherlock Holmes. We hope you've enjoyed the ride and that you'll keep exploring the mysteries all around you.